Want to get started with Unreal Engine 5.5 but not sure where to begin? I've got you covered. By the end of this video, you'll have Unreal Engine, Visual Studio, and Git set up and ready to start creating your dream game. Plus, stick around to the end and you'll learn how to create and build your first Unreal Engine project. There are many ways to set up and install Unreal Engine 5.5 for the first time, but the method I will show in this video, which is downloading and compiling the engine from its source code, is the one I recommend since it is the only way to ensure full access to all engine features. Also, when you download from source, you can look into the inner workings of the engine, which is very handy if you ever want to work with C++ or if a blueprint is not making sense. The only prerequisite for this video is having an account on github.com and having about 300 gigabytes of hard drive space. The GitHub account is important because Visual Studio, Git, and the Unreal Engine source code repository all need a GitHub account to function. If you do not already have one, please go to the GitHub link in the description and create a new one. That should not take long. It'll be like any other website you've ever made an account on. Once you have that, the rest of the tutorial will be smooth sailing. I'll mostly follow the official UE documentation found in the description below, and sharing some personal tips and tricks I picked up along the way to save you time and avoid headaches. With that all out of the way, it's time to get into the tutorial. Fair warning, it is a long one, so make sure you have your coffee at the ready. First step in compiling UE5 from source is to download and set up Microsoft Visual Studio correctly for UE5 development. To do this, go to the Microsoft Visual Studio download link in the description, which will take you to this page. Then, on that page, scroll down until you see the purple colored box titled Visual Studio. Then, on the drop-down titled Download Visual Studio, select Community 2022. This is the free version of Microsoft Visual Studio. The download will then start automatically, or if it does not work for you, you can press the link provided on that page for if the automatic download does not work. After the installer is downloaded, you can head to your Downloads folder and start the Visual Studio Setup.exe program. When the UAC prompt appears, click Yes to continue. Next, click on Continue on the Visual Studio installer pop-up. The installer will now prepare and download a few files. This may take a moment depending on your internet speed and PC. Next, after the installer is finished setting up, you will see the Visual Studio installer. I recommend full screening the window to best see all options. On the Workloads tab, you'll have to select the following: .NET Desktop Development with C++, Win UI Application Development, and Game Development with C++. After that, you will also need the following from the Individual Components tab: the C++ Profiling Tools, the C++ Address Sanitizer, the latest version of the Windows 10 SDK, and Unreal Engine installer. Optionally, you can also choose to add the Visual Studio debugger tools for Unreal Engine Blueprints preview to get access to Visual Studio debugging for blueprints, which may be helpful when mixing blueprints and C++ code in a project. Though, since it is a preview as of the time of filming, it may not be fully stable and may be subject to change. After you have selected those options and any others you may need depending on your project's requirements, you can hit the Install button to start the installation of Visual Studio. As this is a large download, depending on your internet connection and computer speed, this can take several minutes to finish, so feel free to pause and come back to this video once your installation is done to finish setting up Visual Studio and the rest of UE5. I will be back with the remaining steps shortly after some soothing install music. At this point, after installing Visual Studio and all of the needed components, it should automatically open and you will be greeted by the Sign In to Visual Studio screen. On this screen, I recommend using the Sign In with GitHub option, since you already need a GitHub account to download UE5 source code, and this is easier than creating another account just for Visual Studio. If you're already logged into your GitHub account, you'll just need to hit Continue in your web browser, or if you're not logged into GitHub, you will be displayed with the GitHub login window. After hitting Continue, you will see an Authorize Visual Studio screen. On this page, you have to hit the green Authorize GitHub button to continue. If your browser asks you to open a link in some program, just hit the Accept button and then you should be logged in, and you can head back to the Visual Studio app. After connecting your GitHub account, you will see the Personalize Your Visual Studio Experience screen. On this screen, you can choose to keep the default settings or change the theme if you wish. Then you can hit Start Visual Studio and it should open up. You will then see the Open Recent window appear. We are almost done setting up Visual Studio, we just need to change some final settings to be ready for UE5. To continue, just hit the Continue Without Code link in the Visual Studio window. You may see a What's New window or a GitHub Copilot chat window appear. Just close both as they are unimportant and may hide actually important parts of Visual Studio. Now that we have Visual Studio installed, let's tweak some basic settings to optimize it for UE game development. Get started by right-clicking the toolbar at the top of the screen and then click Customize. Next, click on the Commands tab and then change the toolbar option to Standard. Next, in the preview list, scroll down until you see Solution Configurations, then click it and select Modify Selections. Finally, set the width to 200 and press OK and close. This is to ensure you can read the long configuration names that UE5 uses. Next, on the toolbar, you will have to ensure the Solution Platforms button is enabled. To do this, press the small downward arrow near the end of the toolbar, and then under Add or Remove Buttons, make sure that Solution Platforms is checked. After that, we will need to turn off the error list for Visual Studio. This is because when working with UE5, the error list tends to give many false positives, making it better to use the output window instead. To disable the error list, you will have to go to Tools, Options, Projects and Solutions, General, and uncheck Always Show Error List if build finishes with errors, then press OK. Finally, there are only a few more small settings to change to enhance your experience. Go to Tools, then Options, then Text Editor, then C/C++, then View, and set Show Inactive Blocks to False. Finally, in Tools, Options, Text Editor, C++ Advanced, find and set Disable External Dependencies folders to True. This will prevent unnecessary clutter as Unreal Engine makes heavy use of many external dependencies and inactive code blocks that are not important for you as a game dev. At this point, you should have Visual Studio installed, signed in with GitHub, and configured for UE development. Before we download the Unreal Engine 5.5 source code, we will need to link our Epic Games account and GitHub account. To do this, first we will need to head to the Unreal Engine link provided in the description. Then you will sign into or create your Epic Games account. After logging in, at the top right of the window you will see your screen name. Click on your screen name, then on Account. In the Account Settings page, on the sidebar, click on the Apps and Accounts tab. Next, where it says GitHub, click on the gray Connect button. Accept the EULA for the Unreal Engine, then click Connect Account. Next, in the Authorize Epic Games pop-up window, select the green Authorize Epic Games button. Then you can hit the blue Continue button. You will receive a few emails from Epic and from GitHub. Look for the emails with the subject line @Epic Teams Admin has invited you to join the @Epic Games organization. Then, in the body of that email, hit the green Join @Epic Games button. Then in your browser, you will see GitHub open up, and on the You've been invited to the Epic Games organization screen, you will select the green Join Epic Games button. You will then get another confirmation email of this. Now that we have our Epic Games and GitHub accounts connected, we will have to set up a fork for the Unreal Engine source code and install the Git CLI so we can download the source code the proper way. To do this, go to the Unreal Engine repository link in the description. Next, you will press the fork button, then on the Create a New Fork screen, you will press the green Create Fork button. This is recommended since if you ever have to modify the engine code for any reason, you will need your own fork of the repository. Now that you have a fork of Unreal Engine, you will need to set up the Git CLI. To do this, go to the Download Git link in the description. Then, under the Download section, select Windows and select the top Click Here to Download link. Once the Git installer is downloaded, you will run the installer. If a UAC prompt appears, select Yes to continue. Then, on the installer, just click Next until you get to the Select Component screen. On this screen, enable the Add a Git Bash Profile to Windows Terminal checkbox, then click Next until you get to the Changing the Default Editor Used by Git page. On this page, it is highly recommended to change the editor from Vim to a GUI text editor of your choice. Then click Next on all pages, keeping the defaults until you see an Install button. Then click the Install button and wait for Git to install. After the install finishes, you can uncheck View Release Notes and click Finish. You should now have a proper Unreal Engine fork setup and the Git CLI installed and ready for use. Now that we have all dependencies set up, we can finally download the engine source code. To do this, open the Windows terminal by searching for terminal in the Windows 11 search bar. Once you have terminal open, it will default to Windows PowerShell. Now, before we can download UE5, we have to set up SSH for GitHub, as Unreal Engine is big enough that doing a normal clone over HTTPS will error out most of the time. To set up SSH for GitHub, we just need to follow a few steps. First, in PowerShell, type ssh-keygen-t rsa-v4096-c or githubemail.com, then press enter. When it asks you for a location, press enter to accept the defaults. When it asks you for a password, you can provide one if you wish for extra security. Next, to view the key, use the following command. Type c:\users\your username /.sh/id_rsa.pub. Then copy that output to your clipboard by highlighting it and pressing enter. Now back on GitHub, click on your profile picture and right-click on Settings, then Open in New tab. Then on the sidebar under Access, click on SSH and GPG keys, and click the green Add New SSH Key button. Give it a name, then paste the contents into the key text box and click Add SSH Key. Now that we have our SSH keys set up, we need to open Git. To do that, go back into the terminal, then you will select the arrow next to the plus symbol and select Git Bash. Once in Git Bash, you will want to change your current directory to where you wish to install Unreal Engine to. To do this, you will utilize the cd command to select a folder on your computer. For example, I will use cd/d/backtick game development backtick. The syntax is cd/drive letter/path/2/folder/ with any folders making use of a space needing to be put in backticks to avoid errors. Once you are in the correct folder, you can head back to your web browser, and on the page for the fork we created, you will see a green code button. Click that, then under SSH, click the copy button, then back in terminal, type git lfs install to enable large file support. Then to clone the repo, type git clone --filter equals blob:\none --recurse submodules and right click to paste in the URL. Then press enter on your keyboard and the download will start. If you see a warning about if you want to connect, type yes and press enter. It may take a few minutes to complete, so fetch yourself some coffee and enjoy some more soothing music while this completes. Now that we have downloaded the source code, we are ready to start the build process. The first step will be to go to the folder you downloaded the UE source code to, then go into the Unreal Engine folder. Next, in that folder, first run the setup.bat script. This step may take a while, as UE will have to fetch many large files before compilation, so again, enjoy some nice music while this completes. If at any point a UAC prompt window appears or a Windows feature dialog box appears, press yes, accept, or continue until all processes are done. Then once everything from that script finishes, you can go back to the Unreal Engine folder and run the generate_project_files.bat script to set up the project files for Unreal. This script should be much faster than the first. After the generate project files.bat script completes, back in the Unreal Engine folder, you will see a UE5.sln file. Double click on it, and if it asks where you want to open it in, select Visual Studio 2022, then click Always. Once Visual Studio opens, you may see a warning that you need to install additional components for a full development experience. If that does appear, click on the install link in that warning window just to be on the safe side. After clicking that link, leave whatever it chooses in the Visual Studio installer pop-up and press the install button. You may see a UAC prompt. If you do press yes and wait for the download to finish, Visual Studio may restart during the installation. Now that all components are installed and the project is fully set up, we are fully ready to compile the engine. At the top of the toolbar, set the solution configuration to Development Editor and the solution platform to Win64. After that, in the Solution Explorer, right-click on UE5 and select Build. This will start the build process, which depending on your system may take a while. It is recommended to close all other programs except for Visual Studio and the tab you are watching this video on to speed up the process. Again, enjoy some nice music while this compiles. Once the compile completes, assuming no errors, you should have the hard part over. Now all that's left is to open the editor and make your first project. Though if you did get any compile errors, please post them in the comment section or my Discord linked below so I can help you solve any compilation problems. Now that we have compiled UE5, we can finally start the editor. To do so, from the Unreal Engine directory in your File Explorer, go to Engine, then Binaries, then Win64, and scroll until you find unrealeditor.exe. Then right-click it and select Create Shortcut. Next, rename the shortcut to something like Unreal Engine 5.5 and move it to your desktop. Now you can launch the engine from the shortcut. You may get some firewall pop-ups, press allow on any that show up. The engine will then compile some shaders and finish initializing. This may take a minute the first time, but it will be much faster in the future. Once again, I'll play some nice music while this finishes off. Once it finishes, you will see the Unreal Project Browser. Here you can select a template. I'll select First Person. After selecting a template, you can select a project location and name down at the bottom. I prefer to keep all of my projects at a dedicated directory on my secondary drive and give it a descriptive name. For this video, I will call it My First Project. Once you are happy with your selection, you can hit Create. The editor will then compile more shaders again. After the first time, this will be much faster, more music incoming. It will then load the editor in full. At this point, you can press the green play button to mess around in the editor, or more fun, build your first game. To do that, press the Platforms button, then under Windows, press Package Project. Then you can select a location to build the game. I like to select a different build location from my project location. Once you've found a good location, hit Select Folder. Then the packaging process will start. You can press the Show Output Log link to track the progress. Once it is done, all you have to do is go to the location you chose, open the folder, and launch the game. You've officially built your first Unreal Engine 5 project. Congratulations! And that's it. You've successfully set up Unreal Engine 5.5 from source, compiled it, and even built your very first project. You now have full access to the engine's inner workings, giving you complete control over your game development journey. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future Unreal Engine guides. Also, if you ran into any issues or have any questions, drop them in the comments or join my Discord server link below. I'll do my best to help out. Have a great day, and bye for now!